microphone, and one medium-sized coffee. Welcome to the Trailer Music Composers Podcast. Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Trailer Music Composers Podcast. In today's episode, I wanted to give you guys another walkthrough of one of my tracks, because, well, let's be honest with you, I enjoy doing the walkthroughs. They're quite fun, and also it's just one of those things. I would love to hear other composers doing like walkthroughs, and when I have seen it, I have loved it, because it's like, oh, that's how they do that. And then also like, oh, that doesn't look as hard as it sounded, you know? It's kind of like revealing those tricks to be not tricks, but just like everyday mundane things we composers do. So this track it was originally called The Scent of Time, and it's actually called something else now, which I've forgotten. It's called The Empty Page, and it got used on the teaser trailer to Benedetta. So this was a track that I wrote it was essentially for a solo violin and basically trailerised solo violin. I did 3 albums of this for Elephant Music, and this one I really, really love how they've used it in the trailer. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a look and a listen to how they use it in the trailer, and then I'm going to show you exactly how I did it. It's essentially, like I said, a solo recording and some other stuff to make it sound all cinematic and trailery. So let's check out the actual trailer, shall we?
Dieu te parlera dans beaucoup de langues. Si ton cœur est assez courageux pour s'ouvrir à lui, ça m'effraie.
Les voix de Dieu sont souvent terrifiantes.
Benedetta!
Santa Benedetta. Je ne sais pas comment Dieu fait rêver les choses. Je sais seulement qu'il accomplit sa volonté à travers moi.
Okay, so there you go. That's how they use it in the trailer, which, as I said, I really, really like. So what I would like to do now I have my Logic file up front, is just talk a little bit about it, have a listen through, and then break down what I did. So it's pretty straightforward. Like, I wrote this on piano. I think I deleted the piano track. Yeah, this is pretty much it. This is the idea. I pretty much wrote it on piano. Bing, 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 which sounds great. And wrote it in, obviously, the 3 acts. So let's, what we'll do first is we're going to listen through. I'm getting really excited, sorry. We're going to listen through from start to finish, and then I'm going to break it down. Okay. Here goes. there we go. So as you can tell, they kind of used my Act 1 as Act 1, my Act 2 as their Act 2 and 3, and then my Act 3 as their kind of sign-off, their outro, their Act 4, their sting. So what's my process behind writing this type of stuff? Because it's deceptively difficult. And what I mean by that is we so often hide what we're doing in layers. We hide what we're doing in orchestration. But when you're just dealing with one, okay, it's probably about 3 different violin takes here. When you're dealing with very, very simple parts and, a violin and some atmosphere, essentially, you have to really eke out what you're doing. So the simplest way to eke out your Act 1 is to disassemble everything. And in this instance, I've got a harmonics setting the atmosphere, and I've got pizzicato. And then we repeat that, and then we repeat it, but we layer it with a pizzicato that's got more reverb on it to give it more growth, more development. And that's Act 1 doesn't need to do much. It's just setting the tone. It's just setting the tension. A lot of people mistakenly think you have to throw a lot at Act 1. And yes, you can do that, and sometimes that really works. But most of the time, especially with this type of writing, you think about stripping Act 1 all the way back, because then it gives you further to grow, further to expand your ideas. So with this, I kind of had 2 ideas, and I approached this Act 2 like I would approach writing for the guitar. Kind of, imagine this palm muted, this kind of not pedal tone, but essentially a pedal tone. This kind of note that continues underneath that starts a rhythm. So I used rhythm to set a pace. Now, if you want to understand a little bit about setting pace in 4/4, it's a really simple thing, is dividing your bar up into odd numbers. So in this case, it's 3, 3, and 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Doing that, or you could go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, that type of thing. Or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3. You're essentially breaking up your eighth notes into divisions, odd divisions, so that you get a syncopated sort of jumpy feeling. And that's what I did here. And then it's just a simple idea of layering tones on top of that rhythm. And then ornamenting that with more movement. Okay, I'm just stopping here, this little run. So it's ornaments with movement. How can I repeat the same material but make it feel fresh and new? You add some runs, add some fills. The digga is really, really important because it makes this stuff feel new and fresh. And it gives it a sense of urgency. That kind of digga digga is essentially like a roll into the next phrase. And then what's the next trick? Well, I want to take the same material, but I'm going to put it up an octave. And therefore, what I've done is I've not written any more ideas, but I've managed to stretch this idea out to 1 minute 20. It started with a rhythm, bum 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 bum, and then layering tones on top. You know, what happens when I add, have I got a piano here? Ooh. You hear, sorry, I don't know why, it's really laggy. Anyway, you kind of get the gist. It gives you this sense of movement and progression when all I'm doing is just playing around with double stopping, which is 2 notes played together. And it's really, really simple. And this is the kind of thinking you have to do when you're going, I'm going to trailerize a solo violin. Firstly, I'm going to layer it because, that'll be hard. Some of the tracks weren't layered. Some of the tracks were just single arpeggios. But then I'm going to think about the rhythms. What have I got at my disposal? I want it to be simple, so I'm going to use simple rhythms. I want it to be simple harmonically, so I'm going to use simple harmonic language. And the fills I'm going to do aren't going to be crazy. It's just simple sort of 16th note runs. Digga digga. Okay, now, oftentimes in these act 3s, you go, okay, well, I can't really eke out much more without crazy layering on this rhythm. Dun, 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 dun. So what I did was I took that rhythm, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and turned it into an arpeggio. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. And then brought in a change in harmonics. Sorry, not change in harmonics. A change in the chord progression. Because up until this point, there hasn't really been a change in chord progression. There's been implied progressions. But now with this stuff, you get this sense of it growing. You've got continuity because of the rhythm, and you've got expanding because of expanding. You've got this feeling of expanding because your violin isn't just playing single notes, it's playing arpeggios. And then, of course, jumping up at the octave. So, yeah. And then once we get to the end, that's the sting. It's just that arpeggio played up an octave. It's quite the challenge doing this stuff. As it is with writing just drum tracks, you have to really start to think, I don't want to say cleverly, but you have to become really smart with what you're doing and how you're writing. And what that means is, this piece is born of the rhythm 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. I didn't bring that in until after Act 1. Act 1 is atmosphere setting the tone. I wanted tension and a sub-boom, violin harmonics, and a close recorded pizzicato, which I think was me actually. Yeah, probably. I think this Col Legno was me as well. Yeah. You've got this simple things, 3 elements. The harmonics here create the sense of space. The sub creates impact and brings more emphasis to that space, brings more weight and scale. Because of the way that sub is EQ'd, it's very low, heavy, and no top end, which implies that sound has come from a really, really long way away. Because the bass frequencies travel further than higher frequencies. So when you hear something in the distance, that's why it's often a rumble. Boom. And then this brings it close to us. So we have these 3 stages of distance. And each of them gives each other context. Once you've done that, it's then a case of going, okay, now I can bring in my thematic idea, which is the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. And you bring everything together one step at a time. Introduce the rhythm, then introduce the double stopping, then introduce the movement in the double stopping, then introduce the ornaments within the movement within the double stopping, then throw it up an octave. That's 5 steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 steps that get us to 1.5 minutes. And then the same ideas kind of continue with this arpeggio. Bring in a chord progression, which then allows us to repeat the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2 for a whole sort of 20, 30 seconds. And then chuck it up an octave, give us another 20, 30 seconds, and then repeat the thematic idea, but with more emphasis, which is the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, the arpeggio, as your sting, as your outro, as your act 4. I wouldn't call this my act 4. I would call this my, sting, basically. And there we have it. We have a almost 2-minute 20 track used on the trailer for Benedetta. The violin, apart from the col legno and the pizzicato, wasn't played by me. If it was, you would know. It was played by a violinist I got off of Upwork. I simply sent over the MIDI. I think I sent the MIDI. Yeah, pretty sure I sent the MIDI file with a backing track, and then just got them to play sections. So remember, when you're working with loops, you can be economical with your players. You can say, "Hey, just play this loop and nail it," and then, like I did here, this was this. I just took that loop and laid it under there. Okay? So if you are going to hire players, think about, because you're paying for time, and think about making it easy for the players too. Rather than giving them sort of 16 bars of a really tough arpeggio that's basically just a loop of 1 bar, just give them 1 bar and just say, "Hey, smash this." Or don't smash it, but play it really well, But this stuff's really fun. It kind of gets you out of the box of kind of like huge epicness, although you still have to imply it with a couple of things like the sub boom, and layering the strings and these taiko rolls and timpani rolls. You imply scale and size, but it's really... Oh, excuse me, I'm obviously boring myself. No, I was watching Stranger Things last night. The penultimate episode, so I haven't seen the finale yet. Anyway, I suggest you have a crack at this type of writing. Whether it's violin, whether it's piano, whether it's drums, think in terms of simplicity. Can I eke out an idea and make it last for 2 minutes 20 and make it interesting without having to have 60, 70, 80, 100 channels layering? I mean, you can do that. But this isn't the sound that I was going for. We were going for kind of like HBO promos type of things, and BBC dramas, this type of kind of Murder on the Orient Express, tense thrillers. And, we've landed a few with these now. I think we've landed 3 trailers with these tracks. Not sure what the names of the other ones were. Anyway, try it, guys, because it's really fun, and it really does test your mettle when it comes to economical writing. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I will see you in the next one.
Amazing.